The sun dipped low over the sprawling Ashbourne estate, painting the horizon in bruised purples and golds. Lady Indilia Ravencroft stood on the veranda, her fingers tracing the delicate carvings of the stone railing, as though clinging to something solid in a life that had offered her little certainty. She had spent 23 years living in the quiet shadows of her older sisters, celebrated, admired, married in grand spectacles she had never been invited to join. And yet, despite her reputation for prudence and reserve, there was a fire within her that no one had ever seen. Her father's letters had grown more urgent over the past months, warning of debts, impending ruin, and the necessity of an advantageous match. But Indilia had made her choice long before society whispered of her future. She would not sacrifice her heart, her mind, or her independence, even if it meant her family's name would falter. It was during one of the spring garden balls, grand, glittering, and unbearably suffocating, that she first saw him. The Duke of Ashbourne, tall, impossibly composed, with eyes the shade of storm clouds, had entered the ballroom with the confidence of a man used to having the world bend to his will. Whispers followed him like shadows, speaking of his wealth, his power, and the cold perfection with which he commanded every room he entered. Every eye turned as he scanned the crowd. But when they met hers, Indilia's cautious, watchful gaze, the room seemed to shrink, leaving only the two of them in a bubble of unspoken tension. He was not here for any of the usual flirtations, the shallow games that society expected. No, there was something sharper in his focus, a deliberate intent that both unnerved and fascinated her. Indilia's sister, Lady Celeste, caught her wrist in excitement. "Indilia, do you see him? He is even more magnificent in person. Surely a man like that will be your future." She shook her head subtly, her lips tight. "I am not for sale, Celeste, and certainly not for any duke, however feared or admired." The duke, catching a fragment of her words, allowed the faintest curve of amusement to flicker across his stern features. He had been expecting compliance, whispers, and curtsies. But here was a woman who met his stare with neither fear nor awe. She was entirely her own. As the evening progressed, Indilia felt the weight of the stares, the expectations, the invisible string society attempted to pull around her life. And yet, the Duke of Ashbourne seemed determined to ignore every convention, approaching her with nothing but sincerity and an unspoken question in his eyes. "Lady Indilia," he said, his voice low and smooth, cutting through the music like a blade. "Do you believe in chance, or do you think fate has orchestrated this very moment?" Indilia stiffened, both intrigued and wary. "I believe in choices, Your Grace, not in coincidences." A faint smirk tugged at the corner of his mouth. "Then perhaps you will choose to hear me, even for a single dance." She hesitated, aware of the eyes upon them, aware of the danger in entertaining even a single step toward him. Yet something, an impossible pull, made her nod. As they moved into the dance, Indilia felt a tremor of something she had never allowed herself to feel: curiosity. And, against all her expectations, a dangerous flicker of desire. And so, the game began, one that no one in London could predict, and one that would soon threaten to upend not only Indilia's world, but the rigid rules of society itself. The moon rose high over Ashbourne Estate, casting silver light across the manicured gardens and the whispering fountains. Inside, the ballroom had emptied, leaving only the lingering echo of laughter and music. Lady Indilia Ravencroft lingered near the grand staircase, fingers tightening around her fan as her thoughts raced. Every instinct told her to retreat, to return to the safety of her chambers, and bury the fluttering unease she felt in her chest. But he appeared again, as if drawn to her by some invisible tether. The Duke of Ashbourne stood at the foot of the staircase, cloak slightly damp from the evening dew, eyes sharp and assessing. "Still awake, Lady Indilia?" His voice was quiet, deliberately low, carrying a weight that seemed to press against the walls themselves. She straightened, catching her breath. I suppose I am. The night is too beautiful to waste on sleep, Your Grace." He stepped closer, the distance between them shrinking until the faint scent of his cologne, wood, smoke, and something indefinably wild reached her. "Beautiful, yes, but dangerous as well, especially for a lady like you." "Dangerous?" she asked, arching an eyebrow. I fear little that walks in daylight, nor should I tremble in the moonlight. The Duke's lips quirked into a shadow of a smile, one that made her pulse thrum violently. Ah, but there are dangers that do not announce themselves, and opportunities that hide behind them. Tell me, Lady Indilia, are you brave enough to face both? Indilia's breath caught. He was asking more than a dance, more than idle conversation. There was intent in his gaze, a hunger for truth. I do not know what you mean. Then let me make it clearer, he said, lowering his voice further. I am not here for whispers, nor for the petty games of Mayfair. I am here because I see you, truly see you, and I will not leave until the world knows it as well. Her heart raced at the audacity, the sincerity, the terrifying magnetism of the man before her, and yet caution held her in its icy grip. And if the world does not approve? He stepped even closer, until the warmth of his presence threatened to shatter her composure. Then let them whisper, let them doubt, let them say whatever they will. I am not asking for their approval, I am asking for yours. One answer, Indilia, one choice, and I swear, nothing will ever threaten you again. Her pulse thundered in her ears. She had spent her life bound by society's expectations, by her family's needs, by propriety that dictated every gesture, every word, every heartbeat. And yet, here stood a man willing to break every rule, to challenge every convention, for her. You speak as if my heart is yours to claim, she whispered, almost disbelievingly. Only, if you allow it, he replied, his eyes softening just enough to let vulnerability slip through the mask of control. I claim nothing that is not freely given. The moonlight glinted off the diamond clasp of her gown as she stepped back, gathering her resolve. Then perhaps we should leave the judgment of others to them. Let us speak as we will, away from their prying eyes. A spark of triumph lit his stormy gaze. Exactly what I hoped you would say. Together, they slipped out through the garden doors into the night, the cool air wrapping around them like a shroud. The fountains glimmered like liquid silver, and the roses, though bruised from the recent spring rain, seemed to bow in acknowledgement of this new alliance forming in the shadows. For the first time, Indilia allowed herself to wonder, could it be possible that this man, so dangerous, so unyielding, could also be the key to her freedom? And as the night deepened, the first unspoken promises of their hearts began to take shape, fragile yet unbreakable. A whispered pact between two souls who dared to defy the world together. The morning sun spilled through the tall windows of Ashbourne Estate, catching the dew on the rose bushes and turning the garden into a glittering sea of gold and crimson. Lady Indilia Ravencroft, still trembling from the night before, paced the drawing room, her mind spinning with the Duke's words and the secret meeting under the moonlight. Every heartbeat echoed like a drum of warning. Society would not forgive, would not understand. Her maid entered timidly, carrying a tray of tea. My lady, letters have arrived. From London, I believe. Indilia took them with shaking hands, unfolding the first one. The script was tight, precise, and unmistakably laced with venom. Lady Ravencroft, your conduct at the Ashbourne ball has become the subject of every whispered conversation in Mayfair. It would be wise to consider your future carefully, lest ruin find you. She dropped the letter onto the table, her knuckles white, every word cut like a blade, each sentence a reminder that the eyes of the world were upon her. But then, a second note arrived, written in a bold, confident hand. The seal bore the Harcourt crest, and her pulse quickened as she broke it open. Indilia, do not fear their words. I will face them, everyone, if it means you are safe. Tonight, the Rose Garden, meet me there. Let them whisper, let them watch. I will make them see that no scandal can touch what is ours. Ends. Even as the words sank in, a knock echoed through the hall. It was Lady Marguerite, Indilia's closest friend, and one of the few in the household who knew of her secret meetings with the Duke. They're talking, Indilia, Marguerite said softly, a shadow of concern in her eyes. The whispers will not die. Mothers are warning their daughters to avoid the estate, and gentlemen are debating the propriety of your friendship. Indilia's lips pressed together, and yet I do not regret it. Marguerite frowned. I fear the consequences, not for you, but for the family, your sisters. They will be protected, Indilia interrupted firmly. I will not let their futures be tarnished by my choices. If society wishes to speak, let them. But tonight, I take my own path. As dusk fell, the garden became a world unto itself. The roses, though bruised from spring rains, stood resilient. The fountains murmured their secret songs. Indilia walked the path slowly, heart racing, until she saw him, Duke Sebastian Ashbourne, standing beneath the largest oak tree, cloak brushing the stone path, eyes alight with a storm she recognized. "You came," he said simply. "I did," she replied, stepping closer. "To hear you again. I warned them all," he murmured, his voice low, almost reverent. "I told them that no rumor, no word, no judgment could unseat what has begun between us." Indilia studied him, the weight of his protection mingling with the dangerous allure she could not deny. "And what if they defy you?" He smiled, dark and unwavering. "Then let them defy. I do not care for their approval, Indilia, only yours. And tonight, you are mine in a way no one else can claim." She felt her knees weaken, and he caught her gently, holding her as if the world could collapse, and they would still stand. For the first time, Indilia allowed herself to truly believe it, that in the eyes of one man, one powerful, unpredictable, commanding man, she was seen wholly and entirely. And that belief, fragile yet fierce, began to bloom in her chest like the first light of dawn. The rose petals around them swirled with the evening breeze, and the night held its breath as their hands brushed, a spark igniting that neither rumor nor society could extinguish. In that secret garden, hidden from the eyes of London, their whispered promises took root, and somewhere deep within, Indilia realized, this was only the beginning. The grand hall of Ashbourne Estate glittered under a cascade of crystal chandeliers, their light bouncing off polished marble and gilded mirrors. The air was thick with perfume, chatter, and the hum of anticipation. Tonight was the first formal ball since the rumors had begun swirling, and Lady Indilia Ravencroft felt every eye upon her, weighing her as if she were both jewel and scandal in one. Her gown was a delicate shade of emerald, the silk clinging to her waist and flowing into a train that brushed the marble floor. She kept her gaze steady, her spine straight, but her heart raced with the knowledge that every whisper, every glance, could ignite the fires of gossip that threatened her family's name. Sebastian appeared at her side like a shadow made flesh, tall, imposing, yet impossibly attentive. He bowed, just enough to make her smile, and murmured, "Let them watch, Indilia. Let them whisper. It changes nothing here." She followed his lead, gliding into the crowd as the orchestra struck the first notes of a waltz. Gentlemen inclined their heads, ladies exchanged tight-lipped smiles, and all the while, the Duke's hand never left hers. The whispers began almost immediately. "Did you see Lady Ravencroft's courage?" one whispered to another. "She's audacious," murmured a dowager, clutching her lace fan. "Do you think the Duke will propose?" another asked. With a mixture of curiosity and venom, Indilia kept her face composed, but inside, a storm raged. She had not anticipated the scrutiny would be so sharp, so immediate. Every step felt like walking a tightrope suspended over the abyss of society's judgment. As the evening progressed, an unexpected guest appeared, Lord Blackthorne, the Duke's rival and former suitor of Indilia. His eyes, sharp and calculating, swept the room and landed on her with an unmistakable gleam of challenge. "Ah, Lady Ravencroft," he said, his tone smooth but laced with ice. "It seems you have captured the Duke's attention quite thoroughly. How convenient." Indilia's pulse quickened, but Sebastian's hand tightened reassuringly around hers. "He is irrelevant," Sebastian murmured in her ear, his voice a low growl of possessive authority. "Do not dignify him with fear." The dance continued, but tension coiled like a serpent around every glance exchanged. And then, as if the fates themselves had conspired, a servant approached with a note for the Duke. He read it, eyes narrowing, and handed it discreetly to Indilia. "If you do not act tonight, the letters go public. Secrets should remain hidden, but someone grows impatient." Indilia's stomach turned. "What is this?" she whispered. Sebastian's jaw tightened. "Blackthorne," he said simply. "He threatens to expose us. But I promised you safety. No one will harm you. Not him, not anyone." Her heart thudded with a mixture of fear and something far more dangerous, excitement. Every challenge, every threat, seemed to deepen the bond between them. They were no longer just a lady and a duke. They were conspirators against the world itself, bound by whispered promises and daring hearts. Latter, when the ball reached its crescendo, Sebastian drew her aside into a secluded gallery, where moonlight spilled across the marble floor. He took both her hands in his, eyes dark with a storm of emotion. "Indilia," he breathed. "Tonight, I vow something beyond titles, beyond rumors, beyond society's judgment. I vow that whatever comes, whatever they whisper or write, I will protect you, cherish you, and claim you as mine, in every sense that matters." Tears threatened her eyes, but she nodded, finding strength in his words. "And I vow, Sebastian, to stand by you, to trust you, even when the world tries to tear us apart." They shared a quiet, fleeting kiss, soft but charged, a promise sealed under the gaze of chandeliers and starlight alike. For a moment, the world fell away, leaving only the two of them, hearts beating in tandem against the odds. But outside the gallery, the murmurs of society continued. Letters were being written, eyes were watching. The game had only just begun, and the stakes were higher than either of them could yet imagine. As Indilia returned to the ballroom, hand in hand with Sebastian, she knew this. The Duke's love was her shield, his determination, her sword, and together, they would face whatever storms awaited, even if it meant challenging every expectation in London society. The night ended with a silent understanding, a promise unspoken to all but each other. Their love would not bend, their hearts would not yield, and whatever scandal came, they would face it together. The following morning, Ravenshire Manor awoke to a brittle sunlight that seemed almost accusatory, cutting through the windows with sharp clarity. Lady Indilia Ravencroft lingered in her chamber, staring at her reflection in the tall mirror. Her eyes, wide and haunted from the previous night, reflected a turmoil she had never known. The ballroom's opulence and the Duke's unwavering devotion had not diminished the gnawing anxiety of society's scrutiny. A soft knock at the door pulled her from her thoughts. "Indilia, breakfast is ready," the maid said gently. Indilia sighed. "Tell Sebastian, I'll join him shortly." The Duke, as always, awaited her in the sunlit breakfast room. His presence a combination of comfort and command. He looked up from the table, meeting her eyes with that familiar intensity that both unsettled and reassured her. "You slept little," he observed, pouring tea with deliberate care. "I could not," she admitted. "The whispers, the letters, I cannot stop thinking about them." Sebastian leaned back, his hands clasped in front of him. "Then let us turn the whispers into our advantage. You are mine, Indilia. Let them speculate. Let them wonder. They do not write our story. They only react to it." Her fingers trembled as she lifted her teacup. "But if Lord Blackthorn follows through?" "He won't," Sebastian said sharply. "And if he does, he underestimates how far I will go to protect you." Their conversation was interrupted by a discreet knock, followed by the entrance of a courier bearing a small unmarked envelope. Sebastian's jaw tightened as he opened it. Inside was a single sheet of parchment, its ink sharp and menacing. "Meet me tonight at midnight at the old stables alone, or the truth of last night will reach every household in London." Indilia's stomach turned. "It's him," she whispered. Sebastian's expression darkened. "He overestimates his leverage." "We must go," Indilia said, a surprising fire igniting in her chest. "I will not be cowed by threats." That night, the stables stood in a hollow of shadows, the scent of hay and horses lingering in the air. Indilia's heart pounded as Sebastian led her through the open doors. A single lantern flickered, casting dancing shadows across the walls. Lord Blackthorn stepped from the darkness, a cruel smile on his face. "Ah, Lady Ravencroft, so brave or foolish." Sebastian's hand brushed against Indilia's, a silent reminder of their unbroken bond. "Leave her name out of your games, Blackthorn," he said, his voice low, dangerous. Blackthorn's laugh echoed through the wooden rafters. "Games? No, Sebastian. I merely offer the truth, a truth society will consume eagerly. You can protect her from words, but not from curiosity." Indilia stepped forward, surprising both men. "Enough," she said, her voice firm. "You will not intimidate me. I will not be a pawn in your rivalry, nor will I be silenced by threats." Sebastian's eyes softened as he watched her. admiration flickering in their depths. He took her hand in his. "She is fearless," he murmured to Blackthorn, though loud enough for the man to hear, "and I will not let anyone harm her. Not you, not anyone else." Blackthorn's smirk faltered. "So be it," he said finally, bowing in mock deference. "For now." As the shadows swallowed him once more, Sebastian turned to Indilia, their hands entwined. "You see, Indilia, even the world's most cunning schemes cannot diminish your courage. Tonight, you showed it with every word, every step, and it makes me love you more." Indilia's cheeks flushed. "Half from fear, half from the thrill of the moment. I do not always feel brave," she admitted. "But with you, I feel that perhaps I could be." He pressed a kiss to her forehead, a touch both tender and possessive. "We will face them all, Indilia society, rivals, whispers, they are nothing compared to what we share." And in the quiet of the stables, amid the scent of hay and the echoes of retreating footsteps, the Duke and Lady Ravencroft solidified a promise beyond titles, beyond scandal, a promise that would see them through every storm yet to come. Yet even as they left, the rustle of a shadow near the stables hinted that their challenges were far from over. The game had only begun, and London's eyes were wide, waiting for the next move. The days that followed were filled with whispered rumors, half-seen glances, and the constant pressure of London society. Lady Indilia Ravencroft moved through the grand halls of Ravenshire Manor with a poise that belied the storm within her heart. Though Sebastian's presence offered comfort, the weight of gossip was relentless, gnawing at her confidence like a persistent tide. One evening, an invitation arrived for the grand masquerade at Blackwood Hall, one of the season's most anticipated events. Sebastian's eyes gleamed as he read it aloud to her by the fire. "They expect us to appear, Indilia," he said softly, "but appearances are exactly what we shall master." Indilia's brow furrowed. "And the whispers? They will only grow louder if we refuse. Let us face them head on, together." On the night of the masquerade, Indilia donned a gown of deep sapphire, the fabric catching the candlelight with every step. A delicate mask, silver filigree tracing her eyes, concealed her identity while amplifying the air of mystery surrounding her. Sebastian, tall and commanding in black velvet, placed his hand on her waist as they entered the glittering ballroom. The room erupted into a symphony of gasps and whispers. Lady Indilia Ravencroft, now the enigmatic woman beneath the mask, was immediately the center of attention. Men murmured about her beauty, while women envied the elegance she radiated. But her eyes were fixed solely on Sebastian, who moved with the assurance of a man used to commanding both armies and attention. As they danced, a familiar shadow emerged across the floor. Lord Blackthorn. His eyes scanned the room, searching, calculating. When they landed on Indilia, a flicker of recognition crossed his features, but Sebastian's protective hand never left her back. "You are radiant," Sebastian murmured, his lips brushing her ear. "And utterly mine. No matter what London thinks." Indilia's heart fluttered. "I fear him," she admitted. "He will not relent." "Let him try," Sebastian replied, his tone as sharp as the cut of his jacket. "Every whisper, every threat. They cannot touch you. Not while I stand beside you." Their dance concluded, and the orchestra's music swelled into a crescendo that echoed through the gilded hall. Blackthorn, unable to approach without attracting scrutiny, retreated into the shadows. Indilia's relief was palpable, but so was the realization. Their enemies were patient, cunning, and far from finished. Later, in a quiet gallery away from the ballroom's glare, Sebastian turned to her. "You have learned well, Indilia. You are no longer the timid girl who feared society's gaze. You command it now, with intellect, with courage, with grace." Tears shimmered in her eyes. "I do it because of you. Without your faith in me, I would still be trembling." He cupped her face gently. "No, my love. It is always you. I merely show you what I see. A woman capable of shaping her own destiny, and mine." The masquerade had ended, yet the night left its mark. Indilia realized that her place beside Sebastian was not one of passive compliance, but of active partnership. Together, they could navigate the labyrinthine games of society, turning whispers into admiration and threats into lessons in courage. As they walked, hand in hand through the moonlit gardens of Blackwood Hall, A chill wind stirred the roses, carrying with it the promise of future challenges and future triumphs. Indilia pressed her cheek to Sebastian's chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart, a rhythm that anchored her amid the uncertainty. For the first time, she understood fully. Love was not merely an emotion. It was a strategy, a shield, and a force capable of bending the world itself to the will of two hearts united. And as the first hints of dawn began to lighten the horizon, Indilia resolved silently that no shadow, no enemy, no whisper would ever sever the bond they had forged. Yet, in the distance, a figure watched from behind the trees, cloak blending with the night. The game had not ended. It had only become more dangerous. The morning after the masquerade dawned pale and hesitant, as if London itself held its breath. Ravenshire Manor was alive with servants bustling about. Yet a strange tension lingered in the corridors, a silent echo of the night's whispered gossip. Indilia moved through the estate, like a shadow of her former self, elegant, composed, but acutely aware of every eye and ear that might betray her. Sebastian found her in the sunroom, gazing at the dew-laden gardens. His expression softened at the sight of her. His wife, his partner, the woman who had proven herself more formidable than any adversary he had faced. Still thinking about Blackthorn, he asked gently, stepping behind her and resting his hands on her shoulders. Indilia shook her head. Not only him, the whispers, the letters. Someone is plotting against us, Sebastian. I can feel it. He turned her to face him, his eyes a storm of determination. Then let them plot. We have faced society's scrutiny before. Together we are untouchable. Yet neither could deny the unease that had settled over them. The very evening's triumph, the masquerade, had become a double-edged sword. While Indilia had won admiration, envy and malice had found fertile ground in the hearts of London's most ambitious. By mid-afternoon, a note arrived at Ravenshire, sealed with a black wax crest that was unfamiliar. Indilia's fingers trembled as she broke it open, revealing a single line written in a crisp, elegant hand. Not everything that glitters in your path is meant to remain. Beware the shadow behind the roses. Her pulse quickened. It's a threat, she whispered, showing Sebastian. He scanned the note, jaw tightening. A warning or a challenge? It matters little. Whoever sent this will learn what it means to cross us. That evening, at a private dinner for select guests, Sebastian's gaze never left Indilia. Though the room was filled with laughter and conversation, a cold awareness hung in the air, an invisible tension that even the grand chandelier could not dispel. Lady Beatrice Hawthorne, a woman whose charm was matched only by her cunning, lingered near the wine table, her eyes flicking toward Indilia with thinly veiled malice. Sebastian noticed immediately, recognizing a danger that went beyond mere gossip. You must be cautious tonight, he murmured under his breath, as he guided Indilia to their seats. Some are far more dangerous when they wear smiles instead of swords. Indilia nodded, her fingers brushing his discreetly. She felt the thrill of the game, the intoxicating mix of fear and empowerment. I am ready, she said, her voice steady. Let them come. The evening unfolded with practiced elegance, yet beneath the surface, every glance, every word was a maneuver in a subtle, deadly chess game. And as the night deepened, Indilia realized that her strength had grown not only from Sebastian's support, but from the fire that had always burned quietly within her, the fire of a woman who would not be silenced or subdued. Later, as the house grew quiet and the guests departed, a muffled sound outside the library drew their attention. Sebastian moved swiftly, finding a masked figure attempting to glimpse the contents of his private documents. A brief struggle ensued, and the intruder fled into the night, leaving behind only a scrap of black lace. Indilia held the peace, a chill crawling over her skin. They are closer than we thought, she whispered. Sebastian lifted her chin, eyes blazing. Then we meet them with fire, not fear. Our story is not one of whispers and shadows. It is of courage, defiance, and the unyielding bond between us. As they stood together in the dim glow of the library, hands entwined, Indilia realized that the true challenge was not in surviving the eyes of society. It was in mastering the dangerous hearts that lurked in its corners. And far beyond Ravenshire's gates, in the misted gardens of another estate, someone watched, waited, and plotted. A shadow, whose ambition could ignite a storm that neither Indilia nor Sebastian had yet imagined. The dawn broke over Ravenshire, a soft golden light filtering through the tall windows of the library where Indilia and Sebastian had spent the early hours planning their next move. The night's intruder had left a lingering chill, yet it had also ignited a resolve neither could deny. "Today we end this," Sebastian said, his voice low but unwavering. "No more shadows, no more whispers. Whoever dares threaten us will learn that the Harcourt name is not one to be trifled with." Indilia's hand found his, gripping tightly. "And if they attack our family, our home, then we defend both," he replied. His eyes softened as they met hers. "And we protect what is ours together." By mid-morning, letters had been dispatched, invitations sent under the guise of cordiality. Guests arrived at Ravenshire for a private gathering. Diplomats, nobles, and influential families, all unaware that the true purpose of the assembly was to unmask the shadow plotting against them. The grand hall was a blaze of candlelight and muted chatter when the culprit finally appeared. Lady Beatrice Hawthorne, radiant as ever, yet with an undercurrent of malice, entered with a smile that did not reach her eyes. She had believed herself clever, untouchable, a puppeteer in London's theatre of scandal. Sebastian's gaze pierced her instantly. "Lady Beatrice," he greeted, voice polite but edged with steel. "I trust your journey was pleasant." Her smile faltered, just enough to reveal the calculation behind her charm. "Harcourt, I do not," Sebastian interrupted, stepping closer, his presence commanding the room. "We are not here to exchange pleasantries. We are here to end games." Indilia stepped forward, radiant in her calm defiance. "Your attempts to manipulate and slander end tonight," she said, her voice clear, unwavering. "The letters, the whispers, the late-night intrusions, they were all noted, and everyone has been countered." A gasp rippled through the assembly as servants discreetly presented proof of Lady Beatrice's plots. Letters intercepted, witnesses who had observed her schemes, and evidence of her attempts to harm Indilia's reputation. The hall grew tense, every eye shifting from the evidence to the woman who had dared threaten the Duchess of Ravenshire. Beatrice's composure cracked. This is impossible," she stammered, realizing her carefully constructed web of deceit had collapsed. Sebastian's hand found Indilia's, their unity a silent declaration. "Impossible, Lady Beatrice, because we do not allow fear or cunning to dictate our lives. Not here, not ever." The crowd murmured, whispers now in their favor, admiration and respect overtaking the air once heavy with suspicion. Indilia felt a surge of triumph, not over Beatrice alone, but over the insecurities and doubts that had haunted her since her first days in society. Later, as the hall emptied and quiet returned to Ravenshire, Sebastian led Indilia to the balcony, overlooking the gardens, now bathed in the warm glow of late afternoon. The storm had passed. The real storm, the one outside, had been nothing compared to what they had faced together. "You were magnificent," he said softly, brushing a stray curl from her face. "Every whisper, every shadow, they crumbled because of you, because of us." Indilia leaned into him, heart racing. "And if more storms come?" Sebastian smiled, holding her close. "Then we face them, always together, always as one." As the sun set over Ravenshire, the gardens sparkled with the last droplets of rain, reflecting a promise renewed. Indilia had faced the cruelest of society's judgments, navigated a web of lies and envy, and emerged not only unscathed but triumphant. And in that moment, she realized the truth she had been waiting to embrace. Love and courage were not fragile, not dependent on circumstance. They were forged in fire, tempered by loyalty, and immortalized in the hearts of those who dared to believe in them. The Duke and the Duchess stood together, their hands entwined, a union no whisper, no plot, and no shadow could ever undo. Outside, the world might continue to chatter, but within Ravenshire, love, respect, and indomitable spirit reigned supreme.